Exactly. Well,
Erin,
that is one argument.
I ain't no scientist, so I ain't getting into all of that.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask you, were you ever involved in a serious relationship?
With a man?
Yes, with a man.
At the time, it was serious. I was just at COB. And why I call it serious is because we had a wonderful friendship.
What went wrong?
Say friendship.
Our relationship.
Hold on, you always.
We had a relationship that began on the foundation of a friendship and then moved to sexual intimacy. And so I would call that serious. What caused the end of that relationship, I went off to boarding school and he stayed in Nassau. He wrote me a beautiful letter and he told me that, he has thought about it, he has tried to live through it, and he is not going to be able to remain in a committed long distance relationship with me. And
so he broke your heart?
For about 3 minutes I was heartbroken. And then I realized...
Then you realized you don't like man anyway, so...
No, I realized I was more than 1,000 miles away in a boarding school focusing on my education. He was in the Bahamas, focusing not just on his education, but on the financial support of his family. And that people need to do what people need to do. And the most important thing was the honesty. And that's also why I would call it a serious relationship, because of the way that it ended.
But you was only heartbroken for 3 minutes. So, okay, I should have asked, were you ever in love with a male?
Oh, I was in love with him. I was in love with him. That was
minutes?
my boy. That was my boy.
She's choosing words.
Hold on. Me and Utah is my boy.
No, I'm saying we were the best of friends. Everything we did it together.
Everything. So
we played basketball.
So
together,
y'all would have sex
together.
with women together and share everything.
Not at all. We were in a committed monogamous relationship. And in fact, same-sex attraction, because I was really focused on one person in one relationship. It wasn't even an issue.
So Erin, what happened at 21 that caused your brain to snap and realize that you wanted to be a carpet? What'd you do with carpet?
Now that's not an appropriate term.
What do you mean not appropriate?
That's just rude and off the chain.
Okay, Erin.
But all I lost here, I catch that.
Because the truth is that didn't even spur that the sexual aspect
was last. It didn't come first.
No, absolutely.
Man, stop talking foolishness.
Oh,
So
no.
tell the Bahamian public how it came.
Let me tell you how it came.
Everybody say when you're a sissy, all you want to do is have sex. That's what they got out there.
What?
If you're a sissy, it's all about sex.
Where? In the Bahamas?
Yeah.
If you are a human being, then your sexual urges are strong. They're natural and they're strong, and that's what human beings do. There's an urge to procreate. There's an urge to satisfy oneself sexually. These are natural functions.
Every straight woman of that thing that you want a piece of them.
That is ego, that is paranoia, that is hysteria, that is misinformation and ignorance. The same way that for a woman to say every man out there wants her, that's just a non-issue.
I think Erin want me. I think Erin want me. That's ego?
That is ego.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with ego.
And when you could laugh about it and say it to me, then it's a healthy thing.
But Erin,
Yeah.
back to the point. Tell me what happened
Let
at
me
20.
tell you
What
what
made
happened.
you realize?
I realized first and foremost that I wasn't the same as these straight women. That's not to say that I was gay. What I'm saying is that I didn't feel compelled to wear the costume of the Bahamian woman, to dress up. It's a costume. There's a protocol. There are things that women do, and that's how they identify themselves as women. Those were things that I could not identify with. So initially, I realized that I didn't say to myself I was gay, but I said I'm not the same as these straight women. I'm a different type of woman, and I don't want to be engaged with in the same way that these women allow themselves to be engaged with. And to me at the time, it seemed like there were roles. There's a costume, there's a role, you know your role. If you want to have love in your life, then you have to dress a certain way, you have to talk a certain way, you have to go to a certain type of club and sit down in a certain fashion, and then if you're lucky, a man will come and engage you, and then if you're lucky, you could be in love.
When did you discover your first attraction to the same sex?
That's like the fourth time we asked that same question.
So in that process of
Erin,
realizing,
you could answer any questions.
in that process of realizing that
Don't
that's
say, oh, it was spiritual and DNA and scientific
Listen,
terminology and
in
answer the question.
in the process of realizing that that's not the type of woman that I wanted to be, I realized that I could be any type of woman I wanted to be. That is up to me to define the roles and to define the costume. And it's up to me to decide what I am attracted to. I can't just let other people tell me what I'm supposed to be attracted to. And so while
So this is a rebellion for you. You was a rebellious child who need beaten. Today's show is brought to you by The Audio Plus, your musical store. The Hit Spot, Uniform Depot, Quick Kicks, Love Yourself, Signature Dream Weddings, changing the outlook of weddings forever. Nitro Film Records, breaking sound barriers faster than the eyes can see.
Trendsetters, name brand fashions, and obsessions. Indulge in your pleasures.
Epic Battery, ever producing instant current. Price Busters, savings and a smile in every aisle.
Ideal Auto, tinting and accessories.
we are all rebellious.
Erin, did you get
children.
beaten as a child?
I got 2 beatings, and that was all I
That's
needed
the
to
problem.
learn the lesson.
Now we see what the problem is.
No.
They ain't cut your hip enough.
Let me rephrase that. My father felt that only 2 beatings were necessary, and I agreed. I learned the lesson. He beat me to teach me a specific lesson, and I learned that.
And he learned the lesson that 2 beating wasn't enough, Mr. Greene.
Now let's be careful there. So, but what I'm saying is that when I realized that,
Let's be careful.
when I realized that as a woman that I could actually determine for myself who I was attracted to, then I changed the way that I looked at the world, and I realized that, you know what, I don't have to be struggling with why should I be attracted to men that talk a certain way to women, or feel that it's acceptable to treat women in a certain way.
At age 20, you broke off your relationship with your male friend. When did you first find out that you were attracted to the same sex?
For the 6th time.
About 3 years after that.
So you
I had been to
you were
boarding
celibate?
school. I'd been to boarding school, celibate.
Boarding school means only women.
Celibate and identifying as straight the entire
Hold
way
on.
through.
Boarding school means
I
only
went to an all-girls boarding school.
Now we getting somewhere.
No, see, we're not getting somewhere, because the
Yes.
whole time I was in there, I was celibate, and I was into
That ain't no truth.
heterosexual.
Don't lie to me. You in an all-girls school, you gay, and you celibate?
Let me tell you.
You celibate or what?
I was doing math.
What you celibate of?
I was celibate. I was doing math, physics, and computer
plays?
science
Who
A-level.
plays?
Oh,
Who plays?
me.
You supposed to say God plays.
Listen,
Who plays?
me. I took care of my needs through the most
Erin, you waking
appropriate
me out, but
through the most appropriate manner, which was engaging myself with physical exercise. So when I was in boarding school, this whole misconception that all girls boarding schools make girls gay, that's a bunch of foolishness. And I went to a school that lots of Bahamian girls went to, and I could tell you, ain't no scientific data to prove that. And in fact, while I was in boarding school, I was focused on studies. Focus on
But
studies.
subconsciously, all them women around you was seeping in to your brain.
She just
If
finished
I
up-
in a school, I is the only man with a school full of women. That's like a kid in a candy shop.
But would it be the same if you, as a man, were a man in an all-boys school?
Hell no.
Exactly.
But that's different.
Why?
And
Because I say it's different.
Okay.
and he wasn't suffering from a breakup from his boyfriend.
And I wasn't having an identity problem.
Well, neither was I.
Yes, you was.
No. In fact, at that time, lesbian had never entered my mind. That word, I wasn't thinking about it. When I tell you, I was focused on math, physics, and computer science A-levels. All day, every day. I'm talking about from 4 in the afternoon till 10 at night. That's my study schedule.
This high school.
A-levels. So it would be
Okay.
grade 13 and 14.
Yeah, just after.
Yeah.
When did you first find out that you
Well,
were
this
attracted?
is what I'm saying. About
to
10
the
years.
same-
About 10 years ago,
Uh-huh.
I went through this
She answering this time. She answering this
I went through this
All right.
experience when I realized that that's just a dictate that women love.
What's that word now? What's that word?
That's a big word there. Sorry about that. So,
What it is?
you know, what I'm saying is it wasn't something that I was aware of from birth. It wasn't something that was pushed upon me or forced upon me. I wasn't coerced by anybody. It was a decision that I was left. I came to through reasoning. I sat down and I thought about it.